Hi, and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's review for the Expanse Season 3, Episode 12 and 13, Congregation and Abaddon's Gate. This video is a part of a series of videos where I review episodes of the Expanse, so I have to start with a spoiler warning for the Expanse up to the Season 3 finale. If you haven't seen all of Season 3, you may not want to watch this video, otherwise some things will be spoiled for you. However, this video will not contain spoilers from the novels, so this video will be free from book spoilers, but I will have a spoiler section at the end of the video for those who have read the novels, but I will give a proper spoiler warning before doing so. So, wow, what a finale. Really intense, action-packed, but a lot of great character moments as well. Pretty much what we've come to expect from the Expanse. So what was so great about the conflict in this episode was that there were no evil parties here. That all sides were doing what they felt would save the human race, and they all had their reasons on why they felt they were on the right side. Even though we, the viewer, know that Holden was on the right side, it's easy for one who doesn't know what he knows to view him as insane. So it was great and intense, and the ending was very satisfying and well earned. So, we start the episode on the Rocinante where Anna and Amos deal with Melba, who they strap down and put on an inhibitor that injects her with blockers that counteract her implants so that she can't go all super psycho. Amos wants to kill her, but Anna convinces him not to. This was a really interesting scene. First off, I love what they did with the Anna and Amos relationship in this episode. That was an unlikely pairing, and that was a great way to start this episode, with Anna holding Amos back, holding back his homicidal tendencies, and Anna, for her part, still is angry at Melba, angry enough to smack her, but still is completely against Anna's nature to kill people or to let them be killed, even when they are as despicable as Melba. So then we see Alex and Naomi trying to get to the Rocinante, back to working condition, and they figure out what's going on with the other ships in the fleet, and they look for Holden to find that the Martians have taken him to the Behemoth. So Naomi wants to take Anna and Amos to the Behemoth, leaving Alex in charge of the Rossi, but Alex refuses to stay, saying that he just got his family back and he's not leaving them now, so Naomi agrees that the whole team will go. That was a really touching scene and shows that the Rossi are a family, and the bonds that Naomi and Alex have with this group are, so it's very touching. I loved it. So next we see the Martians trying to interrogate Holden, but he refuses to say anything until they let him talk to his crew. So they give up, and Ashford comes in and he gives it a crack. So Holden realizes that he's now on the Behemoth, so Ashford promises to let him speak to his friends once he answers his question. When Holden tells him that he thinks he'll think that he's crazy, Ashford promises to be open-minded, but it turns out he's not. As when Holden tells him about Miller, he simply thinks he's crazy. As Holden tries to explain what he saw in his vision about the planet exploding and that they're in a graveyard and they need to leave immediately, Ashford just dismisses it as crazy talk. In the spirit of cooperation, the Martians let the Belters lock up Holden and then offer their services on board the Behemoth. Ashford accepts, but says that they must leave their weapons behind, including their power armor, which Bobby Draper isn't too happy about, but her superior orders her to do it. So it's funny that her superior is actually in the right in one regard, where she tells Bobby that they are all in this together and they need to cooperate in order to survive, which does show how smart she is. But on the other hand, she helps Ashford, which is wrong to dismiss Holden as insane. So I like it. I like these characters are dynamic and not simply good or evil. So then we get a scene on the Thomas Prince with this character whom during my reviews I have incorrectly been referring to as the captain. But turns out he isn't the captain. He's just a scientist. Perhaps the lead scientist. But yeah, not the captain. So maybe that's why he has actually come off as so intelligent and reasonable to me, because he's actually a scientist. Anyway, apparently his name is Clavord, and he's played by an actor I recognize as playing the cigarette-smoking man's son on The X-Files. Anyway, Clavord is trying to convince the person who is actually in command of the Thomas Prince to let him go to the Behemoth with him, but he's not buying it. Cavord brings up the possibility of trying to use the extra powerful tight beam on the Behemoth to try to get a message out of the ring. His superior likes the idea, but still doesn't let him go. So it shows that not everyone is going to the Behemoth, just the injured medical personnel, but it appears some command staff as well, as the Thomas Prince is apparently like a ghost ship now without many people left. Not sure why this guy is being such a dick to Cavord so much. I guess it shows that this guy is an idiot. So, on the command center of the Behemoth, Ashford coordinates with the Martian and UNN commanders. Grigori comes up to ask him why he's helping the Inners so much as their supplies are running low and they can't support the UN and Martian wounded, and mentions not too long ago they wanted the Earthers and Martians dead, so why are they wasting valuable resources to save them now? But Ashford replies that they need to stick together if they are to survive as a human race, and in this, he's not wrong. Again, I love the complexity here that Ashford isn't just a mustache-twirling villain, that he does make smart decisions and the right decisions, and seems that his heart is in the right place. So when Grigori mentions that they've run out of synthetic blood, Ashford simply replies by ordering everyone not on duty to donate blood, and even goes as far as to go donate some blood himself. Again, shows that he's actually kind of an admirable guy. So, the Rocinante crew arrive on board the Behemoth, and Giago leads the security team to greet them. When he asks about Melba, Anna simply states that she needs to be locked up, and Giago simply says that he's on it. Now, I think they completely undersold how dangerous she is, and why does he just take it at face value that she needs to be locked up? Does any of the authorities ever learn that she's the one who destroyed the Sun Inn and tried to frame the Rocinante? I mean, as far as anyone else knows, the Rocinante are still responsible for destroying the Sun Inn, so why aren't they being thrown in the cell? Instead, nobody seems to care anymore. In fact, even as far as Holden goes, they're only now concerned about what went down on the station and seem to have forgotten all about the Sun Inn. So, does everybody know it was Melba? If so, I think this information should have been made clear in this episode. Anyhow, so Giago explains that they need to leave their weapons, but Amos refuses even when Naomi asks him to, but eventually she talks him into it. When Naomi demands to know where Holden is and what happened to Drummer, Giago informs her that she's under arrest for being a deserter, and as soon as he says this, Amos is like, I'm gonna need my gun back, which was fucking awesome. It does show that Amos is still willing to go to bat for Naomi, and I'm sure that Amos would have fucked up all of those arrogant little shits had Naomi not held him back, had she convinced him that she needed to go with him because it's the best way for her to get some answers. So that was cool. So she is indeed brought to Ashford, who does explain the situation, and Naomi is surprised to hear Ashford say that Drummer is recovering from her injuries and that she saved his life and that he saved hers. He even asked Naomi if she was expecting a mutiny, making it clear that he actually isn't that bad of a guy. But when Naomi asks to see Holden, he simply tells her that the ship needs repairs, and Naomi's like, I'm not here to repair the ship. But he says, he makes the point that everyone is at risk of dying if the ship fails, including her and her friends. So Naomi agrees under the condition that she can see her friends after she does the repairs. So then we see Melba being taken to her cell, and as she settles in, Holden is there in the cell across the room and introduces himself, and Melba just starts laughing. It's the kind of insane laugh of irony people do when they've gone mad. And this is very ironic indeed, as this whole time she was looking for Holden so she could kill him, and there he is, right across from her, but she can't do anything about it as she's now trapped and sedated. So yeah, I get that insane laugh. That was a nice moment. So we see Amos and Alex arrive at the infirmary where many wounded are being treated. They see Monica Stewart broadcasting on the little TV or monitor or whatever. She's broadcasting the news of what's going on in the ring, so they now know she made it out okay. But then we get a scene with Amos and Anna bonding some more as Amos helps her with a wounded man she's trying to help, and Anna tells him about the clinic she runs on Earth, and when he asks why she does it, she answers that she tries to live her life by seeing what needs to be done and doing it. And funny thing is, Amos says that he does the same thing, although Amos has probably got something really different in mind that has a lot more to do with killing people. Although Amos himself isn't a bad guy, as he explained in earlier seasons, he has no direction himself, but can tell that Naomi and Holden do, and that they have a good heart, so he simply follows their direction, and that's why he latched onto them. So it appears he's doing something similar here to Anna. In fact, I'd say Amos' relationship with Anna reminds me a lot of his relationship with Prax. So it seems like he's perhaps trying to fill in that void left by Prax's absence. So it's nice. I liked it. So Naomi finds Drummer and how injured she is, but when Naomi tries to express her sympathy, Drummer makes it clear she doesn't want it, but is happy to see her. When Naomi asks her a favor, and that is to see Holden, Drummer seems disappointed and said, well, I thought you came here to see me, but Naomi says that she did, in fact, do that, and then sees that she's trying to rig a mech suit so she can walk, and so she helps her with it. So Drummer makes a deal with Naomi that if she helps her to finish the project so she can walk, she'll walk her down to see Holden herself. This was a really nice scene. Not much to say about it, but I do like the Drummer and Naomi relationship, and thought that it showed how much these friends do care about each other, so I did like it. So Kavord comes up with the idea to use a skiff to set its core to blow up to try to block the interference that's holding all the ships there. His UN commander doesn't like this idea, but Ashford does, as Kavord says even if it doesn't free them, they can gain more information about how to break free. However, when they enact this plan, it doesn't go so well, as it does nothing to free them, but they can detect that the station is building up to something. Most likely it's building up to killing them all. So we do know that's pretty much the case, that blowing up the ship was actually a huge mistake, as it actually demonstrated to the station that they're a threat, and so the station now considers them hostile. So yeah, not the smartest thing to do, but I guess shows how new they are all to this whole situation, and no one really knows how to react. So then we get a scene with Anna visiting Melba, which I thought was a really good scene, as it shows Melba is obviously affected by what she's done and is feeling some regret. But also it's interesting that Anna clarified the reason why she saved Melba's life wasn't mercy, it was vanity, as she wanted to prove to herself that she was better than doing things for vengeance, which is interesting, and that this made Melba cry, because of course everything she's done so far has been motivated by vengeance. So it does make me wonder if now she's starting to realize everything she's done was a big mistake, and the next thing she does is to call Anna a coward for not killing her, which does have me thinking that perhaps she believes now that she doesn't deserve to live. But Anna simply says that she doesn't get the easy way out, which could mean that it's not mercy, it's that Anna wants her to have to live with the consequences of what she's done, but that's not necessarily a wish born out of cruelty. So yeah, I love this scene. So then we see Naomi help Drummer finish her contraption, and she uses it to walk around and takes Naomi to see Holden. So this was a touching reunion, as Holden makes it clear that he thought the entire crew was dead and that he had killed them, which explains why he's been so upset this time. So seeing Naomi and her telling him that the crew is fine was a huge moment of relief for him, and of course it was touching seeing these two back together. However, Holden isn't able to tell Naomi what to do on how to fix the situation they're in, but he does confirm that he's been talking to Miller and that Miller has saved them. So he trusts him. So I absolutely love this scene, the music here, and Holden's sense of helplessness to not being able to do anything. It was very powerful. So Ashford meets with commanders of the UNN and the Martians to tell them he believes the greatest threat is the station. In fact, he uses Holden's words to prove that the ring is a threat, not just to everyone in the ring, but everyone home as well. So all of humanity. So he believes the only solution is to destroy the ring to prevent the station from being able to destroy the human race, even though it would mean their deaths, but at least it would save the human race. Now, as I said, Ashford's reasoning here is sound and his heart is in the right place, but he's obviously jumping to conclusions rather than listening to Holden, so he's jumping to the wrong conclusions. But again, to be fair, Holden does come off as a bit of a loon, so you can kind of see why he's a bit hesitant to listen to him. And on that note, the next scene we get is of Drummer and Amy watching the monitor as Holden is in his cell talking to Miller. And I absolutely love that for the first time we see one of his conversations with Miller from other people's perspectives, where you don't see Miller, so it just looks like he's crazy and he's talking to an imaginary friend who isn't there. In fact, it's kind of funny seeing Drummer's reaction. Hell, even Melba can hear what he's saying and is like, what the hell? And although we only hear Holden's side of the conversation, we can pretty much make out Miller is asking Holden why they blew up the ships, and saying that it was clearly not a good idea. But Holden replies, well, how would I know, because I've been stuck in here the whole time. So Holden then turns to Naomi, saying that he knows what they need to do now, which is to shut down all of the ship's reactors to prove to the station that they're not a threat. And then Miller promises that he can then shut down the station's defenses. However, when Drummer calls Ashford with this plan, he doesn't seem too convinced. In fact, Drummer can read between the lines and can tell that he won't listen to her, nor will he give up command, so they all leave to go to engineering in order to force the issue. So Holden and Naomi then contact Amos and Alex to tell them about the plan, as they need them to use Monica Stewart's broadcast in order to convince all of the other ships to also shut down the reactors. And it's funny, Amos says that that's a pretty big ask, and they will have to convince a bunch of scared people to do something that they don't want to do. And Holden says that they'll just have to figure a way out to convince them. I think Amos immediately thinks of Anna, as sure enough, he goes to her and says that they need to convince a lot of people to do what they don't want to do, or everyone's going to die, which certainly gets her attention. I do believe for Anna's part, she trusts Amos enough to take him seriously when he says something like this, so she goes along with it. So they go and confront Monica Stewart, who's not too happy to see Amos, so isn't all that thrilled about helping him in any way, shape, or form. And she explains that Cohen was killed when the speed limit hit. Amos is just like, cut the crap. You want me to feel sorry for Cohen, but it's not going to happen. So just get to the part where you help us. And it's funny. Anna's watching all this, and she seems to realize that this isn't working. So finally, Anna just brings up that what they're doing is they need to, convince everyone to do something so they can save the entire human race, or everyone there is going to die. And Monica is just like, well, you should have led with that, which I love. Very reporter-like talk about what you should lead with. Also shows Anna's a lot better at enlisting people's help than Amos. I guess the old saying sometimes, you attract more bees with honey than vinegar. So, as Holden, Drummer, and Naomi go on the lift, cart thingy, or whatever the hell you want to call it, to the reactor, Drummer gets her guy to enlist help from people they can trust in order to take the reactor station, while Holden and Naomi have a really nice moment where Holden apologizes for driving her away, but she says that he didn't and that she's never leaving again. Then they hold hands, and he says they're together to the end. How cute. But I actually did really like this moment. It's well earned, as these two have been apart for pretty much this entire half season. So this affirmation of their relationship was nice. Also, it was the calm right before we go into the situation where they all very well may die. So we see them take the reactor room, which was easy enough as their allies already cleared it of soldiers. So taking it really wasn't the issue. Keeping it is going to be the much bigger issue. It's funny though, when Holden thanks Drummer for being there for him, she explains that she isn't doing it for him, but because Naomi would be willing to die for him, and she wants to make sure that that doesn't happen. Then Naomi sees what Ashford is trying to do. He's trying to use the behemoth's laser to slice the ring in half, which Holden points out will only provoke the station even further and prove that all of humanity are a threat. So not only will they kill them all, it will wipe out all of humanity. So very high stakes. So it's funny that they that Ashford and Holden are both trying to save humanity, but we do of course know that Holden is doing it the right way and Ashford is not. So we get a nice scene with Anna and Amos while Alex helps Monica tie into the behemoth's communications so they can broadcast, and the broadcast can't be shut down. But I love this interaction between Amos and Anna. It was absolutely golden, as Amos explains that he will kill if necessary, but Anna talks about how this is all a misunderstanding, and if they make it out of all this alive, they will need to find a way to get past her misunderstandings and come together. And she's right. She tells Amos that hate is a burden and he doesn't need to carry his with him. I think she really broke through to Amos. I mean, I said the relationship is similar to his relationship with Prax, but in that case Amos was mainly helping Prax. Where here, I think Anna is mainly helping Amos, and I think he really believes in her being a really good person, so he vows to make sure that nothing happens to her, which she appreciates the thought, but what he's talking about is actually killing people, which she isn't really on board with. So let's give him an A for effort. But as I said, I love this scene. So we then see that in the Behemoth Command Center, the job of tying in the power so they can fire the lasers going really slowly because they don't have enough skilled electricians. So they bring up all the skilled electricians, one of whom just so happens to be Melba, and they obviously have no idea how dangerous she is. This is where, that sharing of information thing I talked about earlier would have come more in handy, like if, say, for example, I don't know, Amos and Anna actually told them what Melba is capable of and what she did, and that she has this implant thingy, but no, she just said lock him up and gave him no information. Anyway, Ashford gets wind that someone is trying to shut down the reactor, so realizes it's Drummer and Holden, so he sends Diago to get them. Drummer tries calling Ashford to reason with him, and again, he explains his reasonings as from his perspective, they're just trying to save the lives of everyone in the ring when he's trying to save all of humanity. But Naomi explains his actions will end humanity, but he doesn't believe her. But then Anna starts transmitting their plan to shut down the reactors, but Ashford is unmoved. Grigori seems convinced though, but when he tries to speak out, Ashford simply kills him. Ashford then reaffirms that they know what they need to do and asks if anyone else wishes to debate him. So he's basically threatening to kill anyone else who disagrees with him, but the Martian commander looks like she's going to challenge him, but instead she backs his play and says that she'll send her Marines to end Anna's transmissions. Really? He just kills a man in cold blood for disagreeing with him, and she's okay with this. And she also ignores what Holden and Anna are trying to warn them about. I find this a bit hard to believe, but I guess without this, we couldn't have the scene where Bobby Draper was sent to kill her friend, so hooray for plot, I guess. But speaking of Anna's transmission, it's interesting that Monica Stewart introduced her as the one who helped expose Aaron Wright and helped end the war, which is true. So I suppose she is a public figure at this stage, which probably lends more credibility to her pleads. She does manage to convince a lot of people, including Cole Vord, who of course knows her in person, so is smart enough to recognize the truth in what she's saying. And Anna, for her part, is willing to risk her life to convince people of this, even when people are firing guns at her. So Bobby Draper and her Marines show up and a firefight breaks out. It is interesting that when Bobby declares herself and calls out, Alex is just like, Bobby? And then she's like, Alex? It's funny, but it does show that these two are close friends, and we saw them interacting back in episode 7 as they really have fond feelings for each other, but are now in a situation where they're shooting at each other. And so Bobby tries to convince Alex to surrender, and so he does, and Amos isn't happy about this and says that he won't hesitate to kill her if she tries to stop them. And when Alex comes out, Bobby says that she doesn't want to hurt him, but Alex says that he's just come out to stop Amos from hurting her, which is probably true. Amos is such a killing machine. Bobby tries to convince Alex that Holden isn't himself, but Alex retorts that he's risking his life to save a bunch of people, so it sounds like the Holden he knows. And I think that convinces Bobby. But the a-hole Marines that she's with, the morons they are, don't care, and they try to kill Alex anyway, even though he's surrendering. I think it's because they can see that Bobby is being convinced by him, and when Bobby tells them to stop, they just attack her as well. Really, fuck these a-holes. So a fight breaks out, and it's obvious that Bobby isn't trying to kill the Marine, but the Marine is trying to kill her, which does put her at a disadvantage. So she manages to knock the Marine out, but not before getting shot in the gut. And the other Marine manages to break free of Alex and threatens to shoot him. So despite Bobby's objections, Amos just shoots him in the head. Again, a killing machine. And I like how at that moment Bobby just decides to join Amos and Alex and is just like clear, but then collapsed to the ground from her wound. Really exciting and powerful stuff. So on the command center of the Behemoth, Melba, while trying to do repairs, and messes up and electrocutes herself. So Ashford goes over to see what's going on. He recognizes her as the prisoner, but doesn't seem to care. Well, Melba explains it's this restraining drugs that are making her out of it. He agrees to take it off so she can work faster. And as soon as she takes it off, she gives this evil look. Haha, I'm free. Yeah, Ashford, real smart. Maybe if someone had told him what she's capable of instead of simply saying lock her up, maybe he would know better not to do this. But anyway, I did really like the exchange between them when Melba asked him if he thought someone could be redeemed for all the wrong they've done in their lives if they do one big act of good before they died. And he said yes, that he hoped it was true. Now, that was a really poignant scene. I did really like it because Ashford was obviously thinking of himself, because being a pirate, he's done a lot of shady things in his life that he regrets. So he believes this self-sacrifice, which he thinks will save humanity, will be his one big act of good that could redeem him. But the fact that Melba asks this shows that she's thinking of herself, and now she regrets her recent actions and is hoping if she helps Ashford save humanity, she could redeem herself. So it's really interesting stuff. Anyway, Diago and his goons had stolen the Martian battlesuits, and they used them to attack the reactor room, forcing Drummer, Holden, and Naomi to retreat into the elevator shaft thingy, but Diago chases them. They throw a bomb to stop them, but it only disables 2 of the suits. Diago is still coming after them, and the other 2 are only temporarily stopped anyway. So Drummer realizes there's no hope for them, so she pleads with Holden to go ahead with Naomi as she plans to sacrifice herself with the grenades in order to take Diago out. And this was a really touching moment between Holden and Drummer, where Drummer was Like, just tell Naomi that I'm sorry that I tried to kill you. So this was a really touching moment of self-sacrifice and a great way for a great character to go out. So I do feel it was a tad bit undercut by the fact that Naomi saved her at the last second, Deus Ex Machina, by getting the elevator or cart or whatever the hell you call that thing operational and just get it to smush Diago. But on the other hand, I love Drummer as a character, and she's one of the best things about this season, so I'm glad she's still alive and that we're getting more of her. And also, thank God Diago is dead. I was getting really sick of that annoying little shit. It's a shame Miller ever saved his life in the first place. Seemed to be a total waste of time. So Holden and Naomi make it to the command center. I'm not sure what their plans are. They try to talk Ashford out of it. Doesn't sound like a good plan to me, but maybe it's all they have left. I think they know their chances are slim because Holden tells Naomi he loves her like they're about to die because, they probably are. So he then throws out his gun and the two of them surrender, but Holden tries to talk sense into Ashford that even though they're scared, the right thing to do here is to do nothing. But of course, this doesn't work on a stubborn idiot like Ashford, so he orders his men to kill two unarmed people with their hands up who are surrendering, simply because he doesn't like what they have to say. Yay for Ashford. So, however, luckily for Holden, even though his words bounce right off of Ashford's thick head, they apparently had sunken into Melba. Melba had been listening to Holden's conversations with Miller and the cell and everything, his conversations with Naomi, so she kind of knew the score. Also, I think she's become convinced by Anna, who's extremely persuasive. So when she saw Anna urging one course of action, she was on board. But apparently Holden's words were the last straw to push her over the edge, so she attacks Ashford, saving Holden. Oh, the irony, she just saved Holden's life. So because the men who were going to fire on him, they fire on her instead, and she gets shot, but she still manages to cut the power to the behemoth, not only ensuring that they can't fire the beam that would wipe out all of humanity, but also shutting the reactor down so the station will know they're not a threat. And thus, Clarissa Mal, the villain, the main villain of this part of the story, just saved all of humanity. Oh, what a twist. But seriously, it does show that people can be redeemed, which is a nice theme in this episode. It doesn't wipe clean all of her previous actions, no, and I'm sure she will have to answer for them, but it does show that no one is beyond all hope. So then we see that shutting down all the reactors not only got the station to release what was holding them there, but also got the ring to reveal its true nature, which was hinted at in the Holden division. And that is, it's a gateway to hundreds of habitable solar systems, which could change the entire existence of humanity. Now, do I buy that simply turning off the reactors would open up all these gateways? Yes, I do. Because, as it was explained, shutting off the reactors simply had the effect of shutting down the station's defenses. And once the defenses were down, that allowed Miller, or the investigator if you prefer, to open up all the gates once the defense system was down. Now, as it's implied in the ending monologue, Holden suspects that this is what Miller, or the investigator, wanted all along, is to open the gate system so that humanity could use it so he could hitch a ride to continue his investigation. So it wasn't really about helping humanity. That was more of a side effect. However, I do think, I also must mention here, the music in this scene is absolutely phenomenal. I still say The Expanse has got the best musical score of any show currently airing. That's just my opinion though. But here it really enhances the scene, does an amazing job of portraying how wondrous a moment this is for all of humanity. So, during this ending montage, we'll get a shot of Drummer making a peace offering to Ashford, who's recovering, bringing in drinks. Because yeah, sure, he tried to have you and all of your friends killed, and he killed an unarmed man just because he disagreed with him, and he was going to kill two unarmed people who were surrendering to him because he didn't like what he had to say. Yeah, and his actions nearly wiped out all of humanity, but who cares? I'm sure he's not a bad guy. Maybe some alcohol will make him nicer. Anyway, we then get a very touching scene where Anna reaches out to Melba. And this I actually do buy a lot more because Melba did save all of humanity, and it was evident that Anna's words actually did reach her. And as Anna was saying, she was trying to grasp onto something that proved Melba was still redeemable, and she proved that there was something in there. So it makes sense Anna would then reach out to her. In fact, I found this a very touching scene. So we also get a shot of Naomi repairing the Rocinante and Amos coming to help her, and it does appear that Naomi has returned home, and these two can repair their relationship given enough time. So that was a touching moment as well. Then we see Alex sitting in the Rocinante pilot's chair, and we pan over to see Bobby dressed in civilian clothes sitting beside him in his co-pilot's chair, smiling at him. I guess she realized that all the other Martian Marines other than her were a-holes, so decided to team up with the only other decent Martian depicted on the show, Alex. Plus, I think the whole helping a fellow Marine get shot in the head thing may not make her too popular amongst the other Martians. So it looks like she's now a full-fledged member of the Rocinante crew. Boy, am I ever glad we are getting season 4 because I so want to see more of that. Oh look, it's what's her name? It's been such a long time. I know I've seen her before. I can't remember who she is though. I think she might be an important politician or something. I don't know. I'm joking, of course. I know it's Ava Sorella and who she is, and she makes a brief cameo in a very brief shot for a couple seconds in the ending montage. Oh, thank you for just giving me one brief shot. God, I miss her. Anywho, the shot here, along with the Holden voiceover, explains this montage is actually set over a long time frame, and explains that the ring has just opened up gates, all these gates which humanity can use to travel to over 1,300 solar systems, which may contain habitable planets for them to colonize, which will be the beginning of what Holden called a bloody gold rush. So exciting stuff again, and exciting stuff indeed. Again, so glad there will be a season 4. So the montage voiceover comes to an end with Holden, who is talking to Miller the whole time, standing naked on an alien world, so obviously a vision, and he's telling Miller that there's still an unknown threat out there who helped wipe out the entire proto-molecule creators. And in fact, it's still a mystery on what happened to them. No doubt it's the mystery that Miller is investigating. And he simply says, Miller simply says that he's going to need a ride, implying that he did in fact open the gates so he could hitch a ride with humanity in order to investigate what happened to the ring builders. So again, great season 4 setup. So glad there will be a season 4. Have I not mentioned that yet? Anyway, we then see Holden travel through the Stargate. What? It's a gate with stars on the other side. It's the Stargate. Anyway, they travel through the gate into the great unknown. And to be clear, I'm sure this is happening a while after the events we just witnessed. It's not like this is the next day or something. I'm sure at least several months have passed. They at least had a shower and had a cup of tea or whatever. But it's not like as soon as they defeated Asher, they're like, oh, let's go through the gate. I'm sure this is much, much later. Anyway, regardless, this is a great cliffhanger, a gateway to end the season. Sorry, I just couldn't resist. Anyway, so my rating for Congregation and Abaddon's Gate out of 10 is a 9. Excellent. Absolutely amazing episode. So intense with a lot of great character moments, amazing music, amazing acting, great ending montage that was even better than the one at the end of season 2. But it doesn't earn a 10 from me because it did have some pacing issues as things happened a little too fast, which led to some plot holes that came as a result of rushing the narrative a slightly bit too much and not taking the time to explain things. But still, overall, really intense and satisfying episode. So now I'm going to talk about how this episode compares to the books. However, I'm not at this stage going to give away any book spoilers, so if you haven't read the books, you're free to stick around for this section, provided you don't mind me comparing this episode to the books, because that's all it's going to be about. And if you don't mind me giving away spoilers from what happens in the books that cover the events of this episode. So I won't give away any future spoilers for the show, but if you plan on reading the novels, it will spoil the difference between the book and the show. So anyway, this episode was pretty much the Nerf football version of what happened in the novels, as the novels was way more bloody. And there was a lot more carnage. I mean, like a lot. In fact, even I thought when I was reading the novels that, whoa, it's a bit too much. There was so much blood and gore. The show was super tame in comparison. As in the novels, it wasn't just Holden and a few others trying to sabotage the ship, but it was an all-out civil war where half of the Behemoth crew are divided and they're fighting the other half, and all the other visiting, Martians and Earthers, they all take sides, and it's a big, huge civil war. It's really a war. Like there's like grenades and machine guns going off and everything. In the novels, Ashford was the captain from the very beginning. But he was relieved of duty at one stage because he was a bit crazy. And he escapes the brig, and while he's in the brig, he meets Melba and recruits her as his secret weapon. And he retakes the command center, which was actually a really bloody affair. And it was basically a war being fought over the ship everywhere, and everyone was killing everyone. There were bombs going off, body parts flying, and rather than like just standing in a hallway making her broadcast, Anna was actually locked down in a defensible room with soldiers posted all around to protect her, and there was like a military assault on her position with a lot of, band of soldiers defending her, not just Amos and Alex, and there were, grenades being thrown and all that. Now, I understand the show's budget only goes so far, and they probably couldn't do something so grand, but I still think they downplayed it a bit too much for my personal taste. Also, the scene where Drummer takes the grenades and went to sacrifice herself to stop Diago seemed to be taken directly from a scene where a character who isn't in the show, named Bull, who is a main viewpoint character in the Behemoth storyline in the novels, he sacrificed himself in the elevator shaft by blowing himself up to stop Ashford's goons, who were wearing the Martian battle armor. So pretty much the same thing, except in the novels, Bull actually did die. He did sacrifice himself. So when Drummer was going to do the same exact thing, I thought, holy shit, they're giving Bull's death to Drummer. That's really ballsy to kill off Drummer, but then they revealed she was still alive, and don't get me wrong, I'm glad the character is still going to be around, but it felt kind of like a cop-out, like Nerf football. But what bothered me even more was the fact that Ashford survived. In the books, he did not. Now, granted, he was a bit more despicable in the books, and they didn't try to get you to relate with his point of view so much as they did here in the show, but I still felt it would have been much stronger had they killed him off in the show as well. And showing Drummer tried to make peace with him was a step too far for me. Honestly, that strikes me as ridiculous. Even in the show, he's done too much to redeem himself. He's killed an unarmed man just for disagreeing with him. By the way, that was a tame version of what he did in the books, where he shot an engineer in the head for purposely trying to delay, and he did that in front of the engineer's assistant, and then said, okay, now you're the chief engineer, implying that if you don't get the laser up in a couple hours, I'm going to shoot you in the head, which to me was actually a lot better. But anyway, so this whole thing didn't really make any sense to me because he was going to kill Holden and Naomi while they were surrendering, and plus he wasn't even the captain. Drummer was the captain, so he basically did mutiny by not returning command to her, because he did in fact said, "You're not in command anymore," when really she should have been. So fuck that guy. Even in the show, he should have died. I think the show just wants to keep David Strathairn around because he's such a great actor. And also I gotta talk about Melba and how her conversion, her decision to change her mind and side with Holden and save humanity, didn't work as well in the show as it worked in the books. In the books, it was a lot longer process. There was another character involved that the show didn't have that actually helped this decision, made it a lot more feasible. You got more inside her head. You got to see more stuff happen. It wasn't just you got her viewpoint. It was that more stuff happened that made it a lot more believable that she would suddenly change sides. I have heard the opinion several times that several people were not convinced in this episode that she would change her mind like this, and I can kind of see it. They were kind of trying to lay the groundworks for this, but they did a very pale shadow of a job compared to the novels. Also, the events covered in these two episodes span half of book 3, which is way faster than they ever attempted to cover book material before. They tend to actually take their sweet time. In fact, they tend to pad stories out. So this pace is totally inconsistent to the pace that the show has always set in the past. And to be honest, to me, this kind of felt like one of those films that they try to adapt like a big novel into 1 2-hour movie, and it just feels really rushed and like it's missing key elements. No doubt this had a lot to do with the precarious situation that the show was in with Sci-Fi Channel. In fact, perhaps the showrunners may have even been aware at this stage that the show would likely be canceled after season 3, so maybe it was their originally it was their plan to finish book 3 in season 4, but then they had to rush to end book 3 with season 3 in case the show got canceled. But that's just conjecture. I don't know that for sure. So I'm sure some of you are thinking at this stage, well, if you hate the episode so much, why did you give it a 9 out of 10? I don't hate the episode. I just don't think it was a particularly good adaptation. But if I judge the episode on its own merits, which I always try to do, there's a lot about it that actually really does work, despite parts of it feeling rushed. So it still gets an overall high rating as an episode in on itself, because it is still a strong way to end the season with a lot of great moments, a lot of great acting, a lot of great music, as I already covered. But when I get around to doing my book to show comparison videos on this episode, is likely to get a very low score, because I don't think it's a particularly good adaptation, but it is a good episode in its own right, if that makes any sense. Anyway, that is it for my spoiler-free section of my review of Congregation and Abaddon's Gate. I will be live this Friday night with special guests Apkin Tomko and Don Willie to discuss these episodes in more detail. I'll leave a link for that event in the description below. Also, I will be back next week for my full review of Season 3 of The Expanse, and more Expanse videos will come during the off-season, so be sure to check that out. You can also check out my channel as I cover many other shows like Star Trek, Game of Thrones, Babylon 5, and more. So be sure to subscribe so you can keep up with all of that. And thanks a lot for watching. However, if you have read the novels, you can follow me to my real spoiler section, which begins now. So it looks like we are all set locked and ready to do City or Burn. I know some people suspected the show would skip that book, as it did seem kind of like an aside, but it's very clear in this finale that that is what they are setting up for. But like the Behemoth storyline, I'm sure it will be altered a lot to work in the context of the show. They'll probably add a lot more characters that we're already familiar with. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised to see Ashford on Illis. It's still not clear if Havelock will be making a return, but I hope so. But despite my complaints about them rushing through book 3, I actually am glad that the season ended with the end of that book, because there's a severe several year time gap between books 3 and 4, and I think it needs to be there in the show, because at the start of book 4, the colonizing of these other worlds has already been well underway by the time that storyline starts. So I do hope season 4 does a better job at establishing this new dynamic than they did with establishing the new dynamic in book 3, which I think they kind of rushed a bit personally. And of course, the show moving to Amazon will hopefully give it a bigger budget in order to do all those location shoots that book 4 would require. I know a lot of people are worried about that, but hopefully this will work out. But I'm sure some things will be simplified because of budget. But that's just the reality of doing television. Not every show can have the budget of Game of Thrones or Westworld, unfortunately. And it's interesting, they had Bobby Draper join the crew a bit early, as in the novel she didn't join until like book 6, I believe. But this makes more sense. It will be a lot easier to keep her in the show. I hope they find a way to keep Avasarala in the show, but if the whole season takes place on Illis the way book 4 did, then that probably won't be possible. Which would irritate me. I think it may distance some people if the entire season took place on Illis, as we wouldn't get any of the system we're familiar with. No Fred Johnson, no Drummer, or Avasarala, or Dawes. I still think it's possible they may try to do some of book 5 material concurrently while the book 4 material is going, or maybe they'll just finish off book 4 by the half season and then start book 5 in the second half. But I actually hope they don't do that, because I'm kind of sick of this whole doing books in half the season. I think they need to start doing one book per season, and maybe now that they had this deal with Amazon, their situation's a lot more stable, where they feel more in a better position to do this. Anyway, that's all I have for spoilers, so I'll see you guys on Friday.